Okay, we are live, or at least we're live here, not on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, then you should have more of a life and watch something else. This is Professor Nathanson. This video, to be clear, is intended for my trademark and branding law students only. If for some reason you're watching this, you may watch this and enjoy it and use it at your own risk. I am not your lawyer. If you need legal advice, get your own lawyer. This is done specifically for the context of my trademark and branding law students at St. Thomas University School of Law, subject to all the limitations that I'm discussing with them. This is not intended to train or advise anybody else. You need a lawyer, get one. All right, so this is for my students, and here's what we're doing: is you are doing a project to register a trademark on behalf of your client using the USPTO's TEAS system. Class members, feel free to start off with the assignments page and then be sure to click over to today's assignment. Right now we're on the September 19th assignment, training on registration of trademarks. There's a bunch of links here which I've already clicked through to. The first one will take you to this branding and trademark registration project, drafting a trademark ITU application. All right, now we have a fictitious client here and we have a fictitious firm. You guys work for the firm of Thomas & Thomas PLLP, where PLLP stands for Pretend Limited Liability Partnership. Your client is listed there as Acme Inc., a pretend corporation that would exist in Dania Beach, Florida. I've given you the address for Acme. It's all made up. As far as the address of the firm, you can use the school's address, right? And you know the school's address. I won't repeat that here. You're going to be filing an intent to, I should say you're going to be preparing without filing a Section 1B intent to use trademark registration application. And what I'm going to show you is going to be a way of doing this that allows you to go through all of the steps of preparing the application and of documenting your work and even backing up your work. And you're going to stop just short of submitting the application for actual consideration. Okay? So don't actually submit the application for actual consideration, because that would then generate a serial number and an actual public filing in your name. All right? Now, obviously, I don't want you appearing to be practicing law. I don't want you to file something actually with the trademark office. So you do everything I say to do. It'll be very easy to avoid that last step, because the last step that you don't want to do is on the very last button on the very last page. You do everything short of that, you'll be able to generate all the documents that you need to submit for this project, and it's going to be actually quite fun and not super hard. Now, later in the class and off of the video, I'm going to tell you how to access your listing of marks. Each one of you for Project 1 came up with 4 marks for me, with goods and services for each mark. From that, I've selected 1 mark and corresponding goods or services, and I'm then going to make one of your classmates your lawyer. Each of you will therefore be acting in 2 capacities. First, you're going to be the CEO for Acme Inc., each and every one of you. And each and every one of you will be a lawyer acting on behalf of another person who is CEO. So, for example, you know, if Tara is a CEO of Acme Inc. for the goods or services for the mark that she's chosen, and then I have Erica be her lawyer, well, then Erica would then be in charge of registering, or I should say preparing the registration materials for Acme's mark and goods and services. The client here is not going to be Tara or Susan or Bob or anybody. It's going to be Acme Inc. is the actual ostensible client. You'll see on the web page I've listed a whole bunch of links for you. I'm going to take you through some of these, and we're going to use this to go bit by bit through the process you're going to engage in doing this. One of the first things I asked you to look at for today's class is the 7-step, here we go, 7-step process for selecting and registering trademarks with the USPTO. I'm not going to go through this, but what I am going to note is why we're doing what we're doing. Step one, selecting a mark, right? Each of you have already done that in your capacity as a CEO of Acme Inc. Then step two, getting ready to apply. One of the steps of getting ready to apply is searching, right? And later in this course, I'm going to teach you some of the basics of trademark searching. We're going to do what's called a knockout, a preliminary search. That's going to be your project 3. In the real world, we would oftentimes do the searching for filing. But in the case of this project, I'm going to ask you to prepare the filing first, and the reason is really pedagogical. It's for learning purposes. You don't know enough yet about trademark law in order to do proper searching and do proper likelihood of confusion analysis. As a result, let's learn something that's a little bit simpler, which is the filing of the application. And then in a month, when we've learned more about trademark law, trademark infringement, and why some marks might infringe other marks, then you'll be better suited to do searching and to do a real likelihood of confusion analysis. So in the class, we're selecting a mark, we're filing the mark, and then we're searching the mark. But in the real world, it would oftentimes be quite different. Select the mark, search if appropriate, and then file an application. Though in the real world, sometimes you'll file very quickly anyway too, and we'll talk about that at greater length later. I just want you to know this. Another thing I'm going to talk about in a moment is the filing basis. As you're going to learn both today and in future classes, particularly next Tuesday, is there's a number of bases under which you can file a U.S. federal trademark registration application. The two main ways are Section 1A, which is 15 U.S.C. 1051A, which is an in-use trademark. So if you're filing for something that's already being used, you would typically use Section 1A because it's an in-use trademark. But oftentimes your clients will select a mark that they have a bona fide intention to use but haven't yet started to use. In that case, you file a Section 1B application, also known as an intent to use, or as I'll call it from now on, an ITU, intent to use application. And an intent to use application is one where you have the plan, your client has the plan to use the mark, but they haven't yet started to use it. Well, the benefit of the ITU application is you get your foot in the door, right? And if you later have use and the application is approved by the trademark office and you file that proof of use, then you'll get your registration, and then you get what's called constructive use dating back nationally to your date of application, which is pretty neat. In other words, you can use a Section 1B application to get your foot in the door for a mark your client hasn't even yet begun to use. But they do have to have at the time they file a bona fide intent to use the mark in commerce. We'll talk about that more next week. So again, searching, usually you would have been doing earlier. Filing, you're all going to do an ITU application. Trademark attorney, well, you are going to be a trademark attorney for your client, which gets us to step 3, right? Preparing and submitting your application. Well, what you're going to use, in the real world, you could use paper filing, but really, in most cases, you want to file electronically. It's quicker, it's cheaper, it's easier, and that's what we're going to learn how to do here. Which, of course, means you're going to prepare your application, but you have to take care not to actually click submit at the end so you don't generate a real file number. I'll talk about that more later. Don't be too scared of it. I actually accidentally did it once, and the world didn't end. But just don't do it anyway. We'll talk about it. In doing your application, though, of course, you have to know what your mark is. And I've given you a mark, right? And I've told you what the goods or services are. But as you're going to see as we go off camera, your client is phrasing the goods or services probably like a client would, perhaps inelegantly, like a real client would. You got to file something that has a description, an identification of the goods and services that looks like what the trademark office wants. You also got to figure out what classifications, international classifications, your goods or services will go in, right? So, bless you, we're going to talk about how to fill out the application, but as a preliminary matter, you've got to learn about classifications and identifications of goods and services. So you'll note that in the project, I've asked you, there we go, to see the international classification listing and to look at what's called the Acceptable Identification of Goods and Services Manual. So we're going to do that next. So even before you apply, you have to think about what class or classes your client's mark might be registered in and how you might describe the goods or services. So first let's look here. Nope, here, there we go. You'll note that I've taken you to a page in the TMEP. That's the Trademark Manual of Examining Procedure. This is a manual used by examining attorneys at the U.S. Trademark Office that they used when reviewing applications for registration. It's a wonderful resource that I encourage you to refer to regularly in this class because it's basically like a trademark treatise and it's available freely online. And as a sidebar, I'd also highly recommend, please feel free to look stuff up in one of the two well-used trademark treatises that are available to you through your law school account. One would be McCarthy on trademark and unfair competition. That's available through Westlaw. And Gilson, G-I-L-S-O-N, on trademarks. That's available through Westlaw. Personally, I'm a big fan of McCarthy's treatise. And again, that's available on Westlaw. Well, putting that to the side, we have the TMEP. And one of the sections of the TMEP I've asked you to look at is section 1402A, which are the international classifications. All right, there's over 40 international classifications. The lower numbered ones are for goods, and the higher numbered ones are for services. Now, usually you're not actually going to use section 1401 to determine what class you're in. The reason I ask you to look at section 1401 is so you can get a flavor for what these classes are like. These classes are created pursuant to international treaty. That's why they're called international classifications. See, class 1 for chemicals, and here's some examples of what goes in the class and things that don't go into the class. Class 2, paints. Here's examples of what go in the class and don't go in the class. Here's some quick examples. Oops. Oh. Here's an example of a commonly used class that may apply to some of you. Class 25 for clothing. See that? Clothing and footwear, but doesn't include clothing and footwear for special use. Say like a hazmat suit probably would go in another class. Here's another class that may apply to some of you. Get there in a second. Yep. And I'm trying to go to class 9. There we go. I know. Number 9, the Beatles, that's right. Class 9, electrical and scientific apparatus. It includes things like punch card machines, computer programs, which means software apps would go there. Software would go there, right? So 25 is a common class, 9 is a common class. I don't know what class or classes may apply to you and your client's mark. But one of the things you'll want to do almost immediately after I reveal to you what your marks are and what your goods or services are is talk to your client's CEO. Find out what he or she has in mind. You may need them to clarify what the goods or services are. It may also turn out that their goods or services may fall into multiple classes. And guess what? You can file in one application multiple classes, including goods and services. And there are, in fact, services classes. Let me find one real quick to show you. Class 45, personal and legal. Services rendered by lawyers. See that? And there's a number of services classes as well. So you can have in your application multiple classes. You can also include both services and goods in your application. So the first thing to think about is what class or classes you're going to be in. But then you also have to think about how to describe your goods and or services. And that's where the acceptable identification of goods and services manual comes in. Oh, and I forgot, I'm on the video as well. There you can see my smiling face. Hello. So under the Trademark ID Manual, the Acceptable Identification of Goods or Services Manual, it's real easy to use. See that search box? So imagine my mark is, let's make up a mark right now, and I'm going to actually in a few moments prepare an application for that mark. Give me a mark. Make one up. Nike. I've never heard of that one before. Let's try another one. No.
Blue ice.
Blue ice. What's that? Flurbo. I like that. Good. Flurbo. Is that F-L-E-R-B-O? Oh, fine. Flurbo. I'm going to make Flurbo with an umlaut. There we go. Flurbo. There we go. Because that would not be Flurbo. That would be Flurbo. Very good. That's not Flurbo, but Flurbo. That's right. So, okay. Somebody else. What's our goods or services? Dingleberry. I don't know what that is. What's that? No, that's not a real thing. Come on. You guys are capable of doing better than that. Flurby? No, I'm asking what is Flurbo? Is that goods, services? What is it? Flowers? Flowers. Flowers. That's interesting. Could that be goods? Could that be services? Ah, okay. I'm going to type in flowers as a start. Look at this. Artificial flowers. Artificial flowers would be in class 26. Dried flowers in class 31. Silk flowers 26. Cut flowers and live flowers in 31. Let's assume these are live flowers. All right. 031 is a goods class. All right. Live flowers. All right. But look. Delivery of flowers being 39. You see that? So 031 is a goods class. 039 is a services class. So as a starting point, you should start thinking, class 31 and class 39. And you see 39 right there, services. A means active. If you ever see any other code, then you want to look up what the status means, because sometimes classifications are kind of removed from active use, right? But A means active. It's still a good class. So we have 31, a goods class for. So I got 31 and 39. I'm not saying these are the only classes that might apply. I mean, we want to talk to the client. Perhaps the client says, oh, there's going to be dried flowers as well, or there's going to be live plants as well. So talk to your client. Find out what they have in mind. What do they have that bona fide intent, to use? And put together your listing of classes, and then with each class, what the goods are. So what I have right now is class 31 for live flowers and class 39 for the service of delivery of flowers. All right. Now I think we're ready to start thinking about our application. All right. Well, there's a number of forms that can be used. Give me a second here. There's the TEAS Plus, the TEAS Reduced Fee or RF, and the TEAS Regular. All right. Where is it? I want us to do the TEAS Reduced Fee application. The TEAS Plus is only for very simple applications where you're letting the software write the identification of goods or services for you. I want you writing your own identification. So I want you to use the TEAS Reduced Fee application. Now, one of the links I gave you for today's class that you see on the assignments page, on the project page rather, well, actually both, you can download, and I would even encourage you to print out a hard copy of a blank TEAS RF form. So what you can do then is read the whole form and read the whole form and read it carefully and figure out how you're going to fill out each part before you start. And then when you start, it'll be much easier to go through the application. So I'm telling you that you're going to use one basis for filing, which is 1B, intent to use. And second, I insist that you use the TEAS RF form. And third, when you get to the identification of goods, you're responsible for writing your own identification and not using the computer to generate it for you. And what I mean by each of these, I'm going to illustrate when we get to the relevant parts of the form. That then takes us to the main part of the game, which is the TEAS form itself. Now, I did one of these earlier today, so I'm actually going to start off at the end. And the reason I want to start off at the end is I'll be able to now show you what you can do to save your work and what you need not to do to make sure you're not actually submitting your work to the USPTO. When you get to the end of your application, you're going to get to a validation page right here. And first you're going to see these 4 links for input, mark, XML file, and text form. What you're going to do is like right-click and open a new tab. Right-click and open up a new tab. Or those of you that have a PC, what you can do is hold down Control and then click. Control, click. Control, click. Control, click. And you're going to get these 4 printouts. You see these? You are going to then save each of those to PDF when you're done. Print them to PDF so you have a copy of your work, and then print out hard copies of each of these 4 pages and give them to me. That will be the substantive part of your project. Okay? You're going to give me 5 documents. Those 5 documents are going to be this, and this. You see that? Give me those 4 documents. So the system is actually going to generate for you the 4 main documents you give me. And then the 5th document is going to be your certification form, which you fill out just like you did for Project 1. So again, getting back to this validation page, you'll have those 4 links right there. You'll be able to click, generate, and then print out all 4 of those pages. And again, I recommend to you that you print them to PDF so you have a PDF copy on your computer. So you have a record, right? And then you can print out the PDF and give it to me. Now, remember how I also said I'm going to tell you on this page what to do and what not to do, right? See down here where it says go back to modify, save form, and pay and submit? Number 1, go back to modify allows you to go earlier in the form to change something. That's okay to do. Number 2 is save your form. That's also okay to do. And I want you to look in the lower left side of the screen. I clicked on save. Whoops, and it took me back to the beginning because it timed out. Oh well. Alright, if you're still in a live session, you click on save form. It's going to generate a file for you to save to your local computer. And then you can use that file to restart your work. In other words, if you save your work, then you can come back later on and load in your work and keep working and further modify. In other words, once you've started, as long as you go to the save screen, you can save your work and then come back later on and continue your work. You would not have to start over again from scratch because that would be just a huge pain in the neck, right? So it's okay to click on go back to modify. It's okay to click on save form. It is not, however, okay to click on pay/submit. Some years ago, when I first did this project, I wondered what would happen if I clicked on pay/submit. Well, it then took me to a screen where I could then pay for my trademark application. Did I pay for my trademark application? No. I think, what is it? It's just like $275 per class. So if I had 3 classes, it would be $525, would it? Yeah. What's $275 times 3? No, $725. Whatever it was, whether it was $275 or $725 or a gazillion dollars, whatever it was, I was like, oh, I just wanted to see what would happen if I click on pay or submit, right? Well, it took me to a screen where I could enter my credit card information to pay, and I was like, Oh, well, this is just pretend. I'm not going to do that, right? So I X'd out of it, and I thought that was the end of it. Some months later, I was doing some Google searching and found out that I had unintentionally generated a real-world serial number for my application connected to my name, right? I ended up calling up the trademark office and said, hey, trademark office, just so you know, I'm just a little old law professor that was doing this for learning purposes, and I see I may have kind of accidentally generated a serial number. Is this like a live application? Do I owe you money? Am I in trouble or something? They said, oh, don't worry about it. I said, okay, I didn't think it was a problem because people will play around with the system all the time, probably generating serial numbers all the time. They said, yeah, don't worry about it. It's no big deal. But having said that, don't do what I did. So I'm like your mom or your dad, right? Don't do what I do. Do what I say, right? And what I'm saying is, please do not generate a serial number. Please do not click on pay/submit. Everything you need to document your work product and to save your product is found here. You can modify by clicking on save to go to modify. You can save your work in a file, right? So you can go back later and load that file and start again. But don't pay/submit. All right, so here's what we're going to do now. We're going to go back to the main system. When you go into TEAS, and I have the link to TEAS itself right there. Here, let's see if I can just start from TEAS itself. There we go. All right, here's the main page. Apply online. Let's see. Here we go. Good. I'm going to do this one more time. So if you would like to try this along with me, you guys, the audience, what I want you to do, and I want you to be able to do this with me, just go to uspto.gov. All right? Give you a second to get there. In the upper right hand, where it says Find It Fast, hover over trademarks, click on TEAS for trademark filing. Now, where it says Apply Online, and it says Go to our index of all TEAS forms, click on that. All right. Now we're at a screen for the initial application form. Now, what form did I ask you guys to please use? Yeah, TEAS RF. So click on that, and we should all be here where it says Trademark Service Mark Application Principal Register version 6.1. Or at least that's what it is as of today. If I use this video for a future class, then the number might change. All right, now obviously you're going to want to read all this stuff, but you'll note that under number 1, you got to select one of the filing options. Don't go with TEAS regular, just leave it on TEAS reduced fee. Now, is an attorney filing this application? I want you to say yes, because you're role-playing as an attorney. Don't worry, I've already thought of that. Now, see under number 3, to access previously saved data, remember how I told you that at the end you can save your data to a file? Well, if you want to continue work that you had started earlier, and you in fact had saved your data, then you would click on Choose File, and that would allow you to load in your previously saved data. All right. At this point, continue. Now it's going to ask for the applicant information. Now I'm not going to tell you how to fill it out, because you have to determine what's the name of the applicant. Is it the entity or is it the CEO? Right? That's something you as an attorney have to problem solve. I think the answer is I'm going to prepare an application for Retention/practice guy. All right? Because it says, right, last name, first name, if that's the owner. the owner of the mark is Nike Inc., then it would be Nike Inc., right? Be sure to be accurate on the name of the entity if it's an entity. If the entity name includes a comma, include a comma. You never want to get the applicant name wrong, because if later it turns out you've gotten it wrong, that can void any subsequent registration. All right, here I'm making this an individual. Yours, however, would be a corporation. All right. Internal address doesn't have to be filled out. Street address, I'm just going to put 123 Pretend Street. City, Miami Gardens, putting down. State, I put down Florida. Zip code, I'm going to put 33054. Don't use a made-up one here because it's going to spit it back at you because it knows what zip codes are real and not. United States. Phone number you don't have to put in. Fax number you don't have to put in. In the real world, put in the phone number and fax number of the applicant, or I should say the owner of the mark, right? The applicant who's the owner of the mark. Put that in the real world. For this project, you don't have to. All right. Email address, you don't have to. In the real world, you ought to. The things you must put in are the ones that have a red asterisk. Okay. I'm going to then continue. And now it's yelling at me, right? A telephone number has not been entered, although optional. It would help the examining attorney. You don't have to put that in. All right. If you want, you can make one up. I don't care, but you don't have to put it in. I'm going to continue. All right. Now, mark information. Now, read all this stuff carefully. But the first thing I want to point out is we're going to choose standard characters. I want you to do a word mark. So if the mark was, in fact, Nike, it would be just the letters Nike rather than any sort of stylization. If it was Coca-Cola, it would be the letters COCA-COLA without any of the stylization. If you have a stylized form or a sound mark or something, you got to upload it, right? But we're just going to do a word mark. We're going to keep it simple. That means standard characters. Now let's see. Our mark here is FLURBO. I got to get a umlaut here somehow. So let's see if I can use Word to generate a U with an umlaut. No, I can Google it too. That's true. Let's do that. Excellent suggestion. All right. U with umlaut. Umlaut, not umlaut, umlaut. There we go. I'm going to copy this. Pull up Notepad. This, go back here. Oh, where'd it go? Ah, here we go. We got it. Flurbo. All right. Now, there's some things that I'm not filling out that may be relevant to yours. For example, if some of you have a mark that has a foreign language equivalent, right, that's a foreign language term, you may need to add a disclaimer or a translation, right? But, you know, I don't, well, I accidentally did that. But here, since we did it, you'll see, if appropriate, then you'd have to add different stuff. But as far as I can tell, Flurbo is a made-up word, so I'm going to omit this part, and I'm just going to continue. Now it wants me to add my goods and my services. You see that? Now this is really important. I'm quite insistent on this. When you go down towards the bottom, it's going to ask you to choose one method for adding the goods or services. Okay? 1, searching the identification manual. 2, entering free-form text. Use free-form text. I will know if you're not using free-form text because it generates the application looking a little bit different. I really want you writing your own identification of goods or services because I want you thinking about how you want to write it. So we're going to change it to that. Okay. Now I'm going to click on this, add goods/services. All right. Okay. let me stop there for a minute, give everybody a chance to try this yourself. Go ahead. Try the stuff that I've done. If I've gone too fast, I can go back a screen and just remind you of what we've done so far. We put in the owner of the mark. I put him as an individual. I made up an address with the city, state, zip code. I continued. I continued again. I put in the mark, which was Fleurbo, and then I continued. And now I'm down to adding goods or services, entering free-form text. And if you've done all that correctly, your screen should look like this. Are most of us there? All right. Now, what I need to do is international class. I got to use the drop-down menu on the left and select my first class. And I said 031, right, for the goods. So I select 031, and now I'm going to say flowers. I'm probably going to choose flowers rather than live flowers. See if that gets past the PTO, because flowers is broader than live flowers, right? All right. And now, on the bottom, I got to assign a filing basis. What basis should we use? 1B. Now note, 1A, as you know, is an in-use mark, a mark that your client's already using. 1B is for intent to use. 44D is when your client has a application in another country that's pending for trademark registration. So if your client is, for example, a German national who has a pending German application, then they could file under Section 44D. And 44D allows them to use the priority filing date of their foreign application if they file, I believe it's within 6 months of filing the foreign application. Well, that doesn't apply here. 44E is when somebody has a foreign registration, which again doesn't apply here. So here's what you want to do is you want to use 1B. Click on 1B. All right. Now we see that 1B has been selected. And now we're in this section right here. You may note that next to I understand, there's a little checkbox. And as you know, this is telling you about what needs to be done with an intent to use application, which is later on, before you register, you have to use the mark in commerce and later file proof of use. All right, click on the check and then click on the bottom where it says assign filing basis. Now what we've done is we've set up 031, that's on the left-hand side of my screen. We've set up flowers. But now we want to add more goods or services, right? Because you'll recall that we decided to register Fleurbo for both goods, flowers, and services, delivery of flowers. So click on Add Classes of Goods or of Goods and Services. So now we have another one of these yellow screens. And we had concluded through our earlier use of the ID manual that we needed to use 039. And then in the big box, I'm going to type delivery of flowers. All right. On the bottom, I'm going to assign Section 1B as the filing basis for our services. We will once again get the checkbox that we have to click on. I'll click on the checkbox. I will assign filing basis at the bottom. And now look what we have. I'm going to make it smaller so you can see it all kind of together. You'll see we have now chosen two classes. On the left we have 031 and 039. To the right of that we have the goods of flowers and the services of delivery of flowers. And they have both been assigned Section 1B on the right. We've now completed that. We can go to the bottom and click on Continue. Now we get to the attorney name. And here's what I suggest you use. Okay? Ira Nathanson. This is pretend a prof practicing. And you could use your name, say, law student, this is practice, this is not real. I will accept that, right? This way you're being truthful, you're making clear that you're doing this for practice purposes. I talked to the PTO some years ago and told them that I want to use this for practice purposes, and they were cool with that. And you're not even going to be submitting it anyway, all right? This will allow you to generate papers, all right, that will stay between you and me, so you can show me what you're doing. But if it gives you comfort, don't flat out say you're an attorney. Say your name, and then it's a law student doing this for practice purposes. You know, if you want to be really paranoid, go and say, I'm not practicing law. This is what we're doing for class to learn how to use it. Something like that. I don't care. Whatever your comfort level is fine by me. But I do want you to list an attorney, right? All right. Docket reference number is something you would use in a real firm, right? Because each client typically has their own client number and then a matter number. And many firms will then have separate matter numbers for each and every trademark they're registering. Make up a number, don't include a number, I don't care. I know you're not admitted, but you have to put a year down. So I'd say put down your graduation year. If you want under membership number, say NA, pretend year, needed to enter, not real. I don't care. You get the idea of what I'm getting at. I'm a real lawyer, so I'm just going to say Ira Nathanson. That's a weird thing to say. I'm a real lawyer. As opposed to what? The ones on TV? Denny Crane? I don't know. All right. I was licensed in 99. I am licensed in Pennsylvania. And yes, I do know my membership number. How you like that? There you go. Anything that's got a star, you must fill out. Street address we're going to put in. I want you to use the school address because that's the address of our pretend firm, right? Miami Gardens, Florida, 33054. Phone number you don't have to put in. In the real world, you totally need to put in an email address. I don't even know why they don't have the star. It's going to, I think, kick it back at you if you don't put in an email address. So put in an email address. All right. And then I continue. And telephone number, ain't going to put one in. Boo-hoo. Now it's asking for correspondence information. Now I want to be really clear here. Who do you want the correspondence to go to? You or your client? You as a lawyer or you as a client? The lawyer. You always want the PTO corresponding with the lawyer, not the client. So there's a separate section for correspondence, right? Well, here it's Ira Nathanson. What's the name of our firm again? Thomas, and Thomas, PLLP. Pretend. Right? Our address, blah, 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 blah. You can figure the rest of that out. Here you have to authorize the use PTO to communicate with the correspondence person, or they will not accept it. Once you get through all of that, you click on Continue. Okay. Now here it's asking for, well, here I'll stop for a second so you guys can catch up with me. This is really fun. All right. You'll get to the fee page. Your fee depends on the number of classes. It's $275 per class, right? And then you got to sign. Now, in the real world, I think it's better to have clients to sign than lawyers to sign. Because when you're signing, you got to click all of these buttons, right? So if you're filing under A, right? Signatory believes the applicant is the owner, right? That you think the facts are true. All of these things. So if the one that knows the facts are the client, better to have the client sign. Lawyers can sign. Better not to have the lawyer sign. the way you sign, it doesn't tell you here, but if you click on where a little hyperlink for signature, then you get a pop-up screen. There we go. Which gives you information on that. And there's a whole bunch of information here. I'm going to scroll up to signature. There we go. Nope. You can sign things like /Jane Smith/ or /RDR, something like that. It's /sig, then /. So for example, ISN, that'd be fine. Or Ira Nathanson, that should be fine. See? I suggest you even say, this is practice for class, not our real lawyer. You can do something like that. That would be absolutely fine as far as I'm concerned too. For date sign, if you just click in there, it'll generate today's date. I saw a hint.
But do we sign with our name or the client's?
I would prefer that you have the client sign, which would then require your client to just sit with you at the computer and enter their initials themselves. In the real world, that's what I think you should do. I would note that you are not allowed to type in your client's initials. It says that right there. So if you're going to have your client sign, have them enter those initials themselves. Okay. So once it is signed, of course, position, prof, this is pretend, for goodness sake. All right. There we go. And then click on validate. Now validate is okay to click on, all right, because we haven't gotten to pay submit. The thing you're not supposed to do is click on pay or submit, but you do have to validate. All right, here we go. Now let's see. Oh, I didn't check all the boxes. My bad. All right, now validate. I think it should accept it. It's going to try to get me to do the phone number, which I'm not going to bother with. And now this page should look familiar to you, right? This is the page we started off at. So again, let me get rid of these other screens for a second. I'm going to, for the PC, control and then just regular click on each of these will generate 4 pages. And these 4 pages along with your certification form or what you submit to me. And this is what I'm actually going to review. Here's our mark page. Here's all the application information. Here is the XML information, which gives me a little bit more. And here's the signature and declaration page. And finally, if you're at this page, you're also going to be able to scroll to the bottom. If you need to go back and modify something, go ahead and do it because you can step back through the application. If you want to save your work, click on Save. And now we're going to get a file generated in the lower left-hand side, right? Which you can then, that's on your hard drive. You can then go and load that in later so you can modify your work without having to start from scratch. Just don't click on Pay/Submit because that means you've submitted nothing. You haven't submitted anything. Anything done up to this point, it's like you're at the border of the PTO, but it hasn't yet been submitted. So play around with it. Have fun. Don't click on Pay/Submit. Nothing will be submitted in your name. Defy or ignore my instructions and Pay/Submit. Well, then you've crossed that line. So don't do that. You'll be fine. This is basically it. Once you've done all these things, you can save and then go back, start again. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop the presentation. This is going to be the end of what goes on YouTube. I'm going to stop. I'm sure lots of you have lots of questions. And then after I stop this, then I can take any questions and help you with it. So thank you for your time and have a good day and a pleasant tomorrow. Bye for now.